The night had teeth. It gnawed at her lungs with every breath, cold air slicing down her throat as if the darkness itself wanted to carve her open from the inside. Amina ran anyway. Her boots struck the pavement in uneven rhythm, slipping on patches of damp concrete, catching again just before she could fall. Each step jarred her body, sent fresh jolts of pain through her legs, but stopping wasn't an option. Not now. Not when the sound behind her kept closing in. Footsteps. Not one set. Many. Measured. Relentless. Inhumanly fast. They didn't echo the way normal footsteps should. There was something wrong with the cadence, too synchronized, too precise, like a pack that had hunted together for far too long. They weren't chasing blindly. They were hurting her. Amina's chest tightened. She forced herself not to look back again. The last time she'd nearly lost her footing entirely. She had seen them. Tall figures slipping through shadow as if it welcomed them. Long coats trailing behind them like smoke. Their movements were too fluid, too controlled, heads angled slightly forward as if scenting the air. As if scenting her. Her pulse spiked, and she pushed harder. The alley ahead narrowed, the walls on either side closing in as though the city itself was trying to swallow her whole. Trash bins lined one side, their metal sides dented and rusted. She slammed into one as she passed, sending it clattering loudly to the ground. The crash echoed. Too loud. Damn it, she hissed under her breath, stumbling before catching herself on the wall. Pain flared in her palm where rough concrete scraped skin away, but she didn't stop to look. She couldn't. Behind her, the footsteps quickened. They'd heard. Of course they'd heard. Amina darted left, then right, weaving through the tight corridors without thinking, relying on instinct more than memory. She didn't know this part of the city well, not like she should have. That had been her first mistake. Her second was trusting the wrong person. The thought hit her like a blow, but she shoved it aside. Regret wouldn't save her. Not tonight. Her fingers tightened around the object in her hand. Small. Smooth. Cold. It didn't look like much, just a disc, no larger than an old coin. But it pulsed faintly, a soft rhythm that seemed to sync with her heartbeat. Every time it flickered, a subtle warmth spread through her palm, crawling up her wrist like a whisper of something alive. She didn't understand it. Not really. But she understood enough. They wanted it, and they would kill her to get it. Amina sucked in a breath, her lungs burning now, her vision starting to blur at the edges. The alley twisted sharply ahead, and for a horrifying second, it looked like it simply ended. A wall. No exit. No, she breathed, panic surging. She sprinted faster, ignoring the protest of her muscles, ignoring the way her body screamed at her to stop. As she got closer, she saw it, a narrow gap between two rusted fences, barely wide enough to squeeze through. Without slowing, she threw herself toward it. Metal shrieked as it scraped against her arms. Her jacket snagged, tearing with a sharp rip. The edges bit into her skin, leaving stinging lines of pain in their wake. For a second, she thought she might get stuck. Then she was through. She stumbled out the other side, nearly collapsing as her foot caught on uneven ground. She caught herself with a gasp, her breath hitching violently as she forced herself upright again. Keep moving. Keep. The space opened suddenly. Amina staggered forward into a wider street, her momentum carrying her several steps before she finally slowed. Her head spun as she tried to take it in, her vision swimming. The city here felt wrong. Too quiet. Too still. Towering structures loomed on either side, their windows dark, hollow, like empty eyes watching from above. Streetlights flickered weakly, casting long, distorted shadows that stretched across the cracked asphalt. No people, no sound, just her ragged breathing, and the footsteps that followed. She turned, and froze. At the far end of the street stood three figures. For a moment, her exhausted mind struggled to make sense of what she was seeing. They didn't move, didn't breathe, didn't shift even slightly as the faint wind brushed past them. They looked like statues. Massive ones. Each stood at least 8 feet tall, their forms encased in dark, heavy armor that seemed to absorb the light around them. The metal wasn't polished, it was matte, ancient-looking, etched with faint lines that hinted at something more than simple construction. They were shaped like men, but larger. Broader. Built for strength beyond anything human. Amina's stomach dropped. No, she whispered. Stories clawed their way back from the corners of her memory, ones she hadn't thought about in years. Her grandmother's voice, low and serious, telling tales by candlelight. Guardians of iron. Watchers of forgotten boundaries. They don't move, the old woman had said once, her eyes distant. Not unless something breaks the rules. Amina swallowed hard. Please, let them just be stories. Behind her, the footsteps burst into the open street. She flinched at the sound, instinctively backing away from it, only to realize she was moving closer to the silent giants ahead. Trapped. The word echoed in her mind, cold and final. The pursuers spread out as they emerged from the alley, their movements slowing now that she had nowhere left to go. There were 7 of them. Maybe more in the shadows behind. Their leader stepped forward, his posture relaxed, almost casual. His face was calm, composed, as though this were nothing more than a routine errand. His eyes locked onto hers. Nowhere left to run, he said, his voice smooth and quiet, carrying easily through the empty street. Amina shook her head, taking another step back. Her heel scraped against the pavement, the sound loud in the silence. You don't understand, she said, her voice trembling despite her effort to steady it. This thing, it's not what you think. We understand perfectly, he interrupted, tilting his head slightly. There was something almost amused in his expression. You have something that doesn't belong to you. Her grip tightened around the disc. A pulse of warmth spread through her palm again. I'm not giving it to you. For a brief moment, nothing happened. Then the man sighed, almost disappointed. Unfortunate. He raised his hand slightly. Amina's heart lurched. And then, something shifted. It was subtle at first. A vibration under her feet, so faint she thought she imagined it. But then it grew, deepening into a low, resonant hum that seemed to rise from the ground itself. The air changed. Pressure built, invisible but undeniable, like the moment before a storm breaks. Amina's breath caught. Slowly, so slowly it almost didn't seem real, one of the towering figures ahead of her moved. A faint grinding of metal echoed through the street as its head tilted downward. Another followed. Then the third. Amina's eyes widened, her fear momentarily eclipsed by shock. No way, she whispered. Behind her, the leader hesitated. What is this? One of the Iron Guardians took a step forward. The sound of its foot striking the ground rang out like a hammer blow, reverberating through the empty street. The hum intensified. The air seemed to thicken. And suddenly, every single one of those glowing, hidden gazes fixed not on her, but on the men behind her. The leader's expression flickered, confidence cracking for the first time. And Amina realized, with a jolt of disbelief, she wasn't the only one being hunted anymore. The street didn't erupt all at once, it snapped. One instant, everything held its breath. The next, the illusion of control shattered like glass under a hammer. Fall back. The leader barked, the smooth confidence gone from his voice, replaced with something sharp and urgent. No one moved fast enough. The nearest Iron Guardian lunged. It shouldn't have been possible. Something that large, something that heavy, should have been slow, predictable, bound by the same limits as everything else in the world. But it moved like a striking predator, closing the distance in a blur of dark metal and silent force. Its arm swung once. That was all. The impact hit one of the pursuers mid-step, cutting off his reaction entirely. His body lifted off the ground as if gravity had simply let go of him, then slammed into the side of a building with a crack that echoed through the empty street. The wall fractured on impact, spider webbing outward as he dropped, limp and unmoving. Amina flinched, her breath catching in her throat. The others reacted instantly. Weapons appeared in their hands as if conjured, sleek, compact devices that pulsed with an inner glow. They didn't hesitate. Bolts of energy tore through the air, streaking toward the advancing Guardian in rapid succession. The blast struck. Light flared. Heat rippled outward, and then dissipated harmlessly across the Guardian's armor. Not even a scorch mark remained. Amina stared, her mind struggling to catch up with what her eyes were telling her. That kind of firepower should have torn through steel, reduced concrete to rubble. But the Guardian didn't even slow down. It kept coming. Another pursuer tried to flank it, darting to the side with unnatural speed. For a moment, it looked like he might succeed, his movement precise, calculated, aimed straight for a gap between the armored plates. He never reached it. The second Guardian intercepted him. Its hand shot out, impossibly fast, closing around his torso mid-stride. The man let out a strangled cry as he was yanked off his feet, his weapon slipping from his grasp and skidding across the pavement. Let go, he gasped, struggling, kicking uselessly. The Guardian didn't respond. It simply lifted him higher, and then brought him down. The sound of impact was sickening. The pavement cracked beneath him, dust and fragments bursting outward in a sharp ring. His body went still instantly. Amina's stomach churned. This wasn't a fight. It was an execution. The third Guardian moved differently. Where the others struck with overwhelming force, this one advanced with measured intent, each step deliberate, controlled. Its attention never wavered from the leader, who was now backing away, one step at a time. You don't understand what you're interfering with, the man said, his voice tight but trying to regain authority. He raised his weapon, though his hand wasn't as steady as before. This is sanctioned. That artifact belongs to. The Guardian raised its arm. The air changed. Amina felt it immediately, a crushing weight pressing down on her shoulders, her chest, her entire body. It wasn't physical, not exactly, but it was undeniable. Like standing at the bottom of a deep ocean trench, where the pressure threatened to collapse everything inward. The leader dropped to one knee with a sharp grunt, his weapon slipping from his fingers and clattering to the ground. What? His breath hitched. What is this? The Guardian's hand remained outstretched, fingers slightly curled. The pressure intensified. Cracks splintered across the pavement beneath the man's knee, spreading outward in jagged lines. He tried to push himself up, muscles straining, veins standing out along his neck. But he couldn't move. No, wait, his voice broke, the first real edge of panic cutting through. Listen to me, you don't know what she's carrying. Amina's fingers tightened reflexively around the disc. Its glow had intensified. She could feel it now, clearly, an energy humming through it, responding to something in the air, something in the Guardians themselves. The man's eyes snapped toward her. That device isn't yours, he shouted, desperation spilling out unchecked now. It's not meant for you. It's. The Guardian's hand clenched. The word died in his throat. The pressure spiked. And then everything went still. Silence fell over the street like a heavy curtain. The remaining pursuers froze. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then instinct took over. They broke. Whatever discipline had held them together shattered completely as they turned and ran, vanishing back into the maze of alleys and shadows they had come from. Their footsteps, once so controlled and confident, now echoed with frantic urgency. Within seconds, they were gone. The street emptied. Only Amina, and the Guardians remained. The sudden absence of noise was almost deafening. Her ears rang, her pulse still hammering as if it hadn't realized the danger had passed. Slowly, the pressure lifted. The air lightened. Amina's knees buckled, and she sank to the ground, her body finally giving into the exhaustion she had been holding back. Her hands trembled violently, her breath coming in short, uneven bursts. She was alive. The thought didn't feel real. It didn't fit. Moments ago, she had been certain this was where it ended. That she would die in some forgotten corner of the city, hunted down for something she barely understood. And now, silence. Stillness. The Guardians stood exactly where they were, as if nothing had happened. No sign of the violence they had just unleashed lingered in their posture. They were motionless again, towering and unreadable. Like statues. Like they had never moved at all. Amina let out a shaky breath, her gaze dropping to her hand. The disc pulsed softly in her palm. For a moment, she considered throwing it. Dropping it right there and running as far as she could, putting as much distance between herself and all of this as possible. But something stopped her. A feeling she couldn't explain. Like it mattered. Like it had chosen her. A heavy step broke the silence. Amina flinched, her head snapping up as one of the Guardians moved toward her. Up close, it was overwhelming. The sheer scale of it blocked out the dim light, casting her in shadow. The armor's surface wasn't smooth, it was layered, segmented, etched with faint patterns that seemed to shift if she looked too closely. It didn't feel like something built. It felt ancient. It stopped a few feet away. Amina held her breath. Slowly, hesitantly, she opened her hand. The disc lay in her palm, its glow steady now, almost calm. The Guardian tilted its head. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, to her complete shock, it lowered itself. Kneeling. The ground trembled faintly under the weight of the motion. Amina's eyes widened. What? She whispered, the word barely audible. A low sound resonated from within the Guardian, deep, layered, like multiple tones vibrating together. Not quite mechanical. Not quite human. Something else. Then, bearer, identified. The voice was distorted, ancient, as if it had traveled through time itself to reach her ears. Each word carried weight, echoing faintly even after it was spoken. Amina's heart stuttered. Bearer, she repeated, her voice small. The Guardian extended its hand, not to take the disc, but to present something. A faint light flickered above its palm, coalescing into a projection. Symbols formed in the air, intricate, shifting patterns that rearranged themselves. Faster than her mind could follow. But one thing stood out. They matched the disc. Perfectly. Her breath caught. You are under protection, the Guardian said. Amina stared at it, her thoughts racing. I don't even know what this is, she admitted, her voice trembling again despite everything. I didn't ask for this. I didn't. Now, you must. The words settled heavily between them. Behind the kneeling guardian, the other two turned, their heads scanning the dark edges of the city. Watching, waiting, guarding. Amina swallowed, her fingers slowly curling around the disc again. The warmth spread through her hand once more, but this time, it didn't feel alien. It felt steady, grounding. Then tell me, she said, forcing the words out, forcing herself to meet the glowing depths of the guardian's gaze. Because they're not going to stop, are they? The guardian rose to its full height, the movement slow and deliberate. No. The answer was simple, certain. Amina exhaled slowly, her fear shifting into something sharper. Something more focused. Then the guardian spoke again. And next time, they will not come alone. The weight of that promise settled into the silence that followed. And for the first time since the chase began, Amina understood. She wasn't running anymore. She was standing at the center of something far bigger than herself. And whatever came next, it was coming for her.